Improve the front end of your truck with a brand new steel bumper. As is everything I get from Tesstudio, it comes very well packaged.
One disclaimer, I normally do my shooting outside where I get the best lighting, but it's -5 degrees in the day I shot this, so I did most of it in my garage. Thanks for your patience.
The installation of this steel bumper on this truck is really done when I'm breaking down into 4 different steps. The first, you have to deassemble the truck in just a couple small ways, to removing a couple bolts and a couple pieces of plastic housing and shroud. That leads me to the second step. We're going to have this little piece of metal exposed down below, and we're basically going to have 2 pieces of metal that we're going to pinch in between that. That's what our bumper will actually end up hanging on. The third step is we're going to move this little front-facing camera, and using an included bracket, pushing it slightly down to the bottom so its vision isn't impeded by the new steel bumper we're putting on. What I'm calling the fourth step will be assembling the whole front range of the bumper, and it's all going to be basically built off of this piece of platform. There's going to be the big U on top, there's going to be a big harness here, another big block here, and the 2 extensions on the side, but it's all going to root from this piece of metal.
Now we're going to take this piece, it's actually going to flip upside down, and we're going to attach it to this little main connecting bracket. Now you're going to screw bolts from this main section into this, and then later we're going to screw them from the wings, but also into this.
Here laid out in my garage floor, you have those 2 end brackets and that large steel connector. Here's the hardware. It's basically some washers, 1 bolt that's got a hex head, and they do include the hex wrench. You're just going to stick it through with washers on both ends and then get those nuts tight so they look like this. Here I'm nutting the bottom 2 bolts that are just below that steel bracket from the outside. I want you to take a look here why it's important to put them in the way you do, because you don't want the nut sticking out on the exposed side. You want the nuts on the inside part that you don't see. So here it is again, still upside down. Now I'm fastening it to the left bracket. Again, same steps, nuts, bolts, get as tight as you can. I do want to point out one technique I use where I put the wrench in the bolt, as you can see here, and I turn it until it hits. Then I use that to hold in place while I take that Allen wrench and snug it in. I don't have to keep my hand on that all the time. But once I have it in, I do snug it down really good with the wrenches.
So now you should have it assembled into one big piece, not these 2 on the outside. The next step is we're going to attach these wings onto either side, which you'll see here. Just like before, it's going to fit flat to the ground. So I'm up here up on this little bench, this freezer I'm using as a bench, where I'm going to fasten this. Now, you will be able to see this part from the outside. So normally it doesn't matter.
But just like I said earlier, anywhere you're going to see it from the outside, it's not going into the hollow. You want to make sure that's the end of a bolt and not a nut. It's just going to look better that way. With the lock washers, it's a lot easier to get them finger tight, then use the wrench.
Now the same steps with the right wing.
So a simple way to make sure you're putting them in right is you always want to push the bolts in from the outsides towards this large center bracket, whether that's the main strut that you're going off of or the wings. Always make your nut connections inside this little square that you see right here.
So now you're going to have it put together in one giant piece like this. The next is that big U we're going to put on top. So for the first time now, I've flipped this over to where now it's right side up, and this is going to screw on right here on top.
If you made it this far, this is the easy part. Same thing, there's going to be 4 bolts on each side. You're going to slide them down through the 2 pieces of steel and then get them snug with the nuts underneath. Make sure you use those lock washers. Those are going to keep these from vibrating loose as your truck moves. Use the wrench to tie them down at the end.
So I second guessed myself a little bit, and I'm going to go back and remove some of the large fender washers I put on, and I'm going to show you why here.
Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here you can see there's 2 bolts going in, one without a washer and one with it. I like the look much better. It's a cleaner without the washers. You see here, none on top. You can see the old one. I do have 2 here.
Ultimately, I think it's just as secure, and I think I prefer the look of without the washer much better. It also comes with this little license plate frame. Now this is also steel, so it's the same material. This can bolt in just like this. So if you're in a state that requires a front license plate, this will be really useful to you. So now you should have this one giant piece, which I'll tell you is pretty heavy. So this is going to all go slide into the truck like this. And make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I will be doing that comparison with this compared to the Nerf bar one here in just a few coming days. So to get these brackets on here, you'll follow along with the previous video I did to put on another front bumper.
Piece of plastic around the little tow hook that just pries out without any kind of screws or bolts or anything like that. With the plastic removed, there's one little silver bolt you remove from both sides.
When you take these little silver nuts out, make sure you don't lose these, because you are going to put these back in. You have 2 different sets of brackets. They're marked with an R and an L. This is of course for left and right. It's going to be as if you're driving the car. So R is going to be for the passenger side, L is going to be for the driver's side. I'm going to start with the R, the right-hand passenger side of the car. So you're going to have like a little bracket that looks like this. It's upside down here in the camera here. This is going to go just like this. If you notice, that little shape there is on the same shape that's on the inside of this hook. So this is going to go up and under, and then the R is going to go on top, and you're actually going to put the silver bolt that you pulled out back in through this hole here. This is where it gets a little tricky if you let it. The instructions you can see right here literally tell you 2 different times to break pieces of plastic. I found a way around that. So essentially what's going to happen here is this bracket here, the R, is going to sit on top, and the second R is going to sit on the bottom, and they kind of pinch in between here. However, where this naturally sits, there's not 1, but 2, but 3 layers of plastic that push this a little bit too far forward. And with that, the bolt that goes through these 2 holes sits at an angle like this. So what we have to do is we have to remove plastic that allows this to set a little bit farther back. Again, 3 thicknesses of plastic, so then these 2 holes will line up right. Let me show you. So I have kind of separated these already with my fingers to make it a little bit easier. But you can see here, there's 1 layer of plastic, and just behind it, there's a second layer of plastic, and then behind it ultimately there's a 3rd layer. So I've kind of pried this back a little bit with a screwdriver, and again, you can get it in there a couple different ways. Pry back that 1st, 2nd, and then eventually 3rd layer, because eventually you're going to slide this R bracket in behind over the top here,
And then slide that metal bracket in between the plastic and the frame of the truck. With the bracket in place, you can see right where you're going to need to put that silver screw back through the plastic, through the bracket, into the frame of the truck. And now, and only now, with minimal effort, you can slide this bolt back through the top bracket, through the little tow hook, back through the bottom bracket. The open end wrench as well as the little L-shaped socket wrench are both included to help this job go a lot easier for you. I used both of these and only these to put this together. And then I'll go ahead and repeat the same steps on the other side, applying those little plastic back, and again, putting that bracket into place once I create that separation. And just like the first one, you'll replace that little silver 10mm bolt, and then you'll strap in the nut onto that long vertical bolt, clamping those 2 clamps together. When you're all done, it'll look something like this.
And if at any point in this video you feel like this is the bumper that you want for your truck, I'll leave the link on where to buy this down in the description below. And I'll show you where you can jump on the Tesstudio site and purchase this for yourself. And when you do, please use my channel name, Charisma, and you'll receive the maximum discount you can get, which is right now 20% off everything in your cart when you get this on your order. Now that you have those brackets secured to the truck and all this put together, it's just a matter of sliding into place. Now this part right here is going to sit on top of the mount that's existing right there. As you'll see, it's right on both sides. It's going to slide in tight. Once you have it all done, we're going to put a bolt up through this into this bolt here from the bottom. This is easier for you to see with it off, so I thought I'd show it to you now.
It sits snug right on top of those brackets until you can get the bolt in.
You can do this with a provided wrench, but you have to get it up in there pretty tight, and it's going to be pretty difficult to get the kind of torque you need to tighten it. So I just have an extension, and I actually have a 5/8 socket. It's going to work nice to be able to get this back up through here like so.
And I'm using a pretty high torque wrench, so I'm going to put this up on a little spurt, as you'll see.
And just in case you have this question, I'll answer it for you right now. Can you still open the hood with this on? I certainly hope so. All systems go.
In place, the bumper has this super sleek look that really fits in nicely to the contours of the truck.
So the only thing we have left to do is to move this front-facing camera. So as you can see here, it's slightly obstructed. The top about 1/3 of this screen is totally blocked off. That's where this little bracket is going to come into place. After we remove this here, which you'll see in a second, this has threads in it, female threads. So we're going to bolt down through the top of the steel bumper into this, and basically the camera is going to end up mounting on this. So it's the same basic position, just out a little bit more, which is not a bad thing, because when you're trying to get close to something, it might actually even be better that the camera is going to be at the very tip and really show you its spatial awareness best. This camera is held on by 2 T20 Torx bit. They do include an Allen wrench to help you get it, but I'm just going to go ahead and use my drill since I have it.
You can wiggle this little shroud loose until it comes off. That exposes 2 little Torx screws, one on the bottom left, another on the top right. You have to remove these with the included Allen wrench that you see me doing here. Then onto the second screw. Before it finally comes loose, you're just going to wiggle this camera out and a little bit to your left until you have a little bit more space. Then, at least I thought, you just line up the little camera through the hole of the bracket and screw it back in. I had a real tough time with this, and come to find out, it's because I was using the wrong screws. I assumed the Torx head screws I took out would be the ones to go back in. Not the case.
So here's the mistake I made. You're not going to reuse that Torx screw. It's going to supply to you what is actually a Phillips head screw that's slightly larger. This screw will thread into that bracket, and you're going to use the little included screwdriver that they gave, which I was wondering what it was in there for. It's for this.
It's amazing how well everything goes together when you use the right hardware. Now I did have to use a little bit of oomph to get it in, but ultimately not that hard.
Then you're gonna mount this bracket back up to the frame here, and it's the same bolt you've been using the whole time.
It's a little tricky to get this bolt lined up just right, but once you get it, piece of cake, screw it in tight, and your camera is mounted, ready for you to look at. And as you can see here by the camera, there's just a tiny little circle now, much better than it was before. This is how it originally would look like.
And if at any point in this video you feel like this is the bumper that you want for your truck, I'll leave the link on where to buy this down in the description below. And I'll show you where you can jump on the Tesstudio site and purchase this for yourself. And when you do, please use my channel name Charisma, and you'll receive the maximum discount you can get, which is right now a 20% off everything in your cart when you get this on your order. As always, thank you for watching this video, but you are gonna wanna subscribe to the channel. As much as I would appreciate your support, you're not gonna wanna miss the comparison video where I'm gonna compare this bumper and the previous one with the Nerf bars I just put on. See you in the next video.